this idea of renewable energy started when I was in part 5. Give us some topics, said, okay, go and research. And I researched into then hydro turbines. And I found hydro turbines very interesting. In fact, I was so passionate about it that when I read it in the books that there was a site in Benin, they call the place Erhabor 2 village. You get to Benin City, you go another 1 hour 30 minutes on bike. I traveled all the way to go and see a village electrician that they said has done something like that before. You know, I actually built an hydro turbine. And after I built it, I presented it. Some lecturer said, no, you must have imported this. I said, no, I didn't import this. And I started showing pictures of how I actually built the hydro turbine. And after then, I now looked at it, okay, if I continue in hydro, you know, how many people can I actually reach out to? So I did more research and more training, then got into solar. And that was how the whole adventure started.
Today we are going to be discussing something that is very interesting. And I have as my guest today a great entrepreneur, creative scientist, and a businessman. His name is Ademola Ajayi, and he has a background training in mechanical engineering and a postgraduate training in technology management. His area of specialty is renewable energy and ICT. He's married to Dr. Mrs. Ajayi, and they have children. He's been in business for over a decade, and he combines his business with training and also a pastoral work in a church spokesman, Central Hope Church, Lagos. Today, I'm glad to have my dear friend, a businessman, a creative individual here, Mr. Ademola Ajayi. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, sir. You know, it's actually a very, very privilege and probably one of the best days you could ever have when you are in a session like this with your own mentor and your own pastor. You know, I didn't even say this comment, just came around and my pastor said, I'm going to be the one to interview you. And I consider it a real privilege to be here with actually my mentor and my pastor. Thank you very much. The principles you've taught us over the years, you know, are actually what we are practicing out there, and it's actually working for us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so
grateful.
much. Sometimes I just feel like asking you how, in spite of all your business work and so on, how you're able to keep yourself in shape and look so balanced. Well, I'll ask you those questions next time. But one of the things that is bothering my heart now is, can you tell us a little bit more, especially to our audience who are in some parts of the world and energy is not known well? What is about the energy business? What is it all about?
Okay, so the energy business is actually a very broad aspect, you know, but let me look at it in terms of renewable energy. It's actually energy that is gotten from the sun. In simple words, it's energy that is sustainable because it is being replenished. Everybody knows that the sun will always eat the earth, you know, at 1000 watt per meter square. So it's just trying to harness to an extent the energy that actually comes from the sun. So sustainable energy is also called renewable energy because it's actually sustainable and just energy gotten from the sun. And what that means too.
How relevant is this business in the current Nigeria situation and also Africa as a whole?
Oh, in terms of relevance, it's becoming even relevant. I'll look at it in 2 or 3 ways. First of all, is the fact that we have an energy deficit. You know, right now they will tell you that we are actually generating about 4,000 megawatts. But the truth is that that deficit is actually more than 10,000 megawatt deficit. And even the so-called 4,000 megawatts is actually not up to 4,000 megawatts. If you look at Engr, for instance, they will tell you that there are about 6 gas-fired plants of about 220 megawatts.
Where's Engr?
Engr is in Ikorodu in Lagos, it's a power plant. And most times you don't even have up to 3 or 4 working out of the 6. So it's very relevant at such a time as this where there is energy deficit. Secondly, it's also very relevant now that you have increased costs of, you know, of PMS and even also diesel. You know, the cost has gone over the last 1 or 2 years in Nigeria. You've seen how this cost has gone 3 times. We used to buy petrol, PMS, for example, about 100 and something, 130 per liter. So it's actually relevant now to help businesses actually cut their costs and not spend a substantial amount of their earnings on energy.
Yeah. How do you come about this business? Can you just give us a little story of your journey
Okay.
from school and then how you moved on into this business of renewable energy and ICT?
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So, for me, ICT started as a passion when I was in my part 2 to part 3 holiday, and it was a lot of time at hand. We're doing IT. We finished by 11, so they say we are through for the day. And so I always had the desire to actually do something. And so then it was this music players, flash drives that were becoming popular. So I just started by buying and selling music players. And up to that, I continued in computers. But then one hand, I was still quite committed to my academics. And so this idea of renewable energy started when I was in part 5. And we just gave us some topics, said, okay, go and research. And I researched into then hydro turbines. And I found hydro turbines very interesting. In fact, I was so passionate about it that when I read it in the books that there was a site in Benin, they call the place Evoro 2 village. You get to Benin City, you go another 1 or 10 minutes on bike. I traveled all the way to go and see a village electrician that they said has done something like that before. And so the passion started from there, started from my 500 level in the university. I actually built an hydro turbine. And after I built it, I presented it. Some lecturer said, no, you must have imported this. I said, no, I didn't import this. And I started showing pictures of how I actually built the hydro turbine. And after then, I now looked at it, okay, if I continue in hydro, how many people can I actually reach out to? So I did more research and more training, then got into solar. And that was how the whole adventure started, right there from my part 5 in the university.
Now, I want to ask again, do you have partners outside this country that are working with you in this business?
Yes, actually, at every point in time, I actually partner with people. Let me start from the very recent partnership. Recently, we actually run a distilled water plant. And what is called distilled water is just water that has gone through boiling, evaporation, and condensation. And so we run it in an area in Lagos where it's called a Band A area, where you are sure of 20 to 24 hours electricity in a day. And just recently, the cost went from about 65 naira per kilowatt hour to about 225 naira per kilowatt hour. And so that means that, the main ingredient cost there is power, and it was going to go 3 times. So we had to go back to the drawing board. I went back to some form of thermodynamics that I learned in school, and we started to build a solar-powered water distillation plant. And because I know how production could be in Nigeria, I had to partner with my Chinese friends. So I'm doing the design, they are doing the production and the testing. And so you also have to partner with people. Also in terms of solar pumping, I didn't know much about solar pumping systems. I had to partner with Lawrence, which is actually a leading, solar pumping company in Germany. And I had to be on them just for them to train me. And they actually trained me that aspect. So I'm about to partner with Indians, about to partner with Americans. And so I just had to reach out to more partnerships.
Now,
Thank you, sir.
what are the challenges you face combining this business with your faith?
Thank you very much, sir. I think one of the best things that have happened to me in this is the fact that I've had people to look up to. I've had people that have gone ahead to cheer you up to see that this thing is possible. Leaving school, I won't have really believed that, one could be very, you could be a business person and still be very fervent. But I came across you, sir, very impressed with Erhabor. I came across someone that was very, was still very much a lecturer, a professor of medicine, as at then for almost 2 decades, now over 2 decades, someone that has been a believer for over 5 decades. And I saw how you were very creative, you were still very relevant in your circle, in chest medicine, well known. And you were still a very good Christian, like someone that would teach you the word of God in ways that you have not heard before. So that was an encouragement for me to say that no matter what you do, it was actually possible. And so having people that have done it, and, at some point I thought that, okay, this was going to limit the scope of business. But after a while, I realized that it was actually helping it, because the principles you learn in church are the same principles you take to business. So it's just living one life, like you always say. No dichotomy between the secular and the secular. So it's the same taking the principles of the church and also applying it in business.
Yeah, can you tell us about 3 or 4 of those principles that govern you? For example, the prayer, what governs, what are the 4 principles that somebody who is starting business can follow?
Okay, so I think some of our principles for us is actually embedded in our mission statement. I came into the church. Sorry, I have to use the church as an example because I'm church, but I came into the church and I saw the relevance of a mission statement, of how the mission statement spurs you, into a belief system, spurs you into a pattern, into a lifestyle. So not so long from that, I started praying and also reflecting that, okay, there has to be a mission. So those mission statements, one of it is, to build a business environment where customers and staff feel loved and appreciated. It looks like a very simple mission, but you have always thought of that success is institutional. Now, as a company, I think we are privileged to have had people that have believed in the vision and have stayed a very long time. The technician that started with me when I launched out the renewable energy business in late 2015, 2016, is still with me to date. It's going to be 10 years with us. We've had people that have stayed average of 5, 6 years. That's the average year in the company. Except for those that are traveling. So those principles to make customers and staff feel loved and appreciated, I actually learned it in the church, reaching out to people. What can we do next to make the life of people better? What can we do next to make the government service unattractive? And another principle is also price quality correlation. I always believe that people should get value for money in a way that's not expensive. People have always believed that, for you to get value, you need to spend a lot of money. People have always made it look like, you can't get things that are of very good quality at a good price. And that is then another principle, and I think I actually got that embedded in scripture, is that he who knows what is right and doeth it not to him is sin. So we got that in the principle to say that to make the right choices for you in terms of product and services are ahead of your own choices. So we are very careful in product selection, especially when we have the pre-knowledge that this might not be the best for the people. And so those principles are all embedded in the church, all embedded in scriptures, and we've been trying to work by it.
Yes, I can see from what our friend Engineer Ademola is saying, that for us to succeed in this life, we have to bring in God as the center. And there's no dichotomy between the spiritual and the secular. It's also made us to realize that we also have to be people-centered, not just profit-centered. Most businesses are just profit-centered. But you have to be people-centered. You have to think about the people you are reaching out to and how to help them. Now, there's a question I want to ask you. So many people complain that when you bring in people to business, they cheat you. Sometimes you see people say they are Christians, but you give them business opportunities. They work with you. They actually make life miserable to you. You see disloyalty. You see people who cut corners. How have you had that experience? And if so, how did you handle it?
Okay, I think that it will be almost impossible to have been in business for over 12 years and you won't have had your share of some of those experiences. Even Jesus had his share. He had a Judas. But one of the things I just always look at is that when things go wrong, the first thing I look at where I have gone wrong. You see, I think a lot of challenges people face, and they name it on people, is actually challenges with the structure and challenges with the system. So when there's an issue of theft, for example, I look at it that it's a challenge, that we need to build a system where it is impossible for you to steal and not get caught. Let me give an example. We used to have an issue with, people would, that I used to travel a lot. So when you now have a driver that travels every week and is telling you that this is the fuel he's using for a vehicle that that is not, you should understand what the gallon per mile of the consumption of that vehicle should look like. So you can do the calculation as an engineer. Somebody is telling you he's using far more. So the person is obviously retaining money for himself. Yeah, you can see it as a problem and say, this driver is untruthful. But then you can also look at it as a problem with the system. So every of those challenges, we look for how do we improve the system. So one of the things we did was we got one of these major marketers got their card. Drivers don't handle cash. So it means that a card is attached to a vehicle, attached to the plate number, so you need to present that card to buy fuel. And they will not, with that card, they can't sell into a jerry can. With that card, you can't say, sell this amount, give this money back. So every time there's a problem, every time we face a major challenge with someone, I look at it as a deficiency in the system, a deficiency in the structure that we need to rise up.
Now, well, apart from deficiency in structure, because there are many nations of the world where the structures are good, there's good accountability system, but you still have this corruption. You see how people saying that they have been cheated upon. They've seen disloyal people.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know if you have made that kind of
Yes,
situation.
I have.
I appreciate your comments, and I take them seriously. Whatsoever you need clarification, let us know. And other episodes of this interview will be able to do it. You can also join us in all our other social media and send your questions. I will be ready to pray with you and support you. Don't forget, God will never make a case against you. Don't ever try to make a case against yourself. God will reach out to you.